What if you could travel not just through time, but to the very beginning of time itself? To the moment before stars, before planets, before light even existed. Now imagine waking up with memories of being there. Memories of witnessing the universe explode into existence. It sounds impossible, but the 10 cases you're about to hear suggest otherwise. These are the survivors who claim they saw creation itself, and what they describe will shake everything you think you know. Imagine floating in the cold silence of space, hundreds of miles above Earth, sealed inside a metal capsule no larger than a coffin. Now, imagine something goes wrong. The instruments flicker, the lights fail, and in the darkness, your mind is ripped backward through time itself, past everything that ever existed, until you witness the moment the universe was born. This is exactly what happened to Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Volkov in 1978, according to documents that were never supposed to exist. Volkov's name appears nowhere in official Soviet space records. No photographs, no mission logs, no commemorative stamps. As far as the Russian government is concerned, he never existed. But in 2004, a cache of classified files was leaked from a former KGB archive, and among them was a debriefing transcript that sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. The transcript described a secret orbital mission, an experimental propulsion test, and an incident so disturbing that every record of Volkov's existence was systematically erased. The mission took place in October 1978. Volkov was testing a prototype engine designed to generate localized gravitational distortions. Soviet scientists believed this technology could revolutionize space travel. What they didn't anticipate was what would happen when the engine malfunctioned. 14 minutes into the test, the capsule experienced what researchers termed a temporal displacement event. Volkov lost consciousness. When Mission Control finally re-established contact, they recorded him screaming, not words, just screaming. A sound one technician later described as a man witnessing something no human should ever see. When Volkov was recovered and debriefed, he could barely speak. His hands trembled, his eyes were hollow. But slowly, over the course of several sessions, he described what happened during those 14 minutes. He said his consciousness was pulled backward through time, not years, not centuries, billions of years. He watched galaxies dissolve. He saw stars collapse back into nothing. He experienced the universe rewinding around him until there was only darkness. And then, at the very end, he witnessed it. A single point, infinitely small, infinitely dense, containing everything that would ever exist, and then it exploded. Volkov said he felt the explosion pass through him, felt himself become part of the expanding energy, felt matter condense from light. He existed, for one impossible moment, as the universe being born. But here's where the case becomes truly disturbing. Volkov made drawings of what he saw, simple sketches, crude lines on paper, depicting wave patterns and energy distributions. Soviet physicists who examined the drawings couldn't identify what they represented. The patterns matched nothing in their databases. The files were sealed and forgotten. Then, in 2009, an American researcher studying the leaked documents noticed something that made his blood run cold. Volkov's drawings matched the cosmic microwave background radiation maps released by NASA's WMAP satellite. These maps show the oldest light in the universe, the afterglow of creation itself. They weren't created until 2003. Volkov died in 1991. He had no way of knowing what the birth of the universe actually looked like. And yet, his drawings were accurate. The Soviet government allegedly transferred Volkov to a psychiatric facility in Siberia shortly after his debriefing. He spent his remaining years in isolation, forbidden from speaking about his experience. According to one nurse who later defected to the West, Volkov spent hours each day staring at the ceiling, whispering to himself. She said he repeated the same phrase constantly. It was beautiful, and it was watching me, watching him. The same words that appear again and again in cases like this. As if something at the moment of creation, something that existed before time itself, noticed when a human consciousness arrived. The question is, what did it see when it looked back? And why did the Soviet Union work so hard to make sure no one ever found out? Absolutely chilling, but Volkov was just one man, one accident, one government desperately hiding the truth. What if someone deliberately tried to reach the beginning of time? What if a scientist designed an experiment specifically to send human consciousness to the moment of creation? The next case proves someone did exactly that. And what she found there changed her forever. Picture yourself floating in absolute darkness. No light, no sound, no sensation of your own body. Just your consciousness, untethered, drifting through nothing. Now imagine that nothing begins to move, and suddenly you're falling backward through time itself, past your own birth, past human history, past the formation of planets and stars, until you reach the very beginning, the moment before existence. This is what Dr. Elena Vasquez claims she experienced in 1994, and the scientific data from that night suggests she might be telling the truth. Vasquez was a neuroscientist at Stanford University, brilliant and unconventional. While her colleagues studied memory and cognition, she became obsessed with a radical question. What if consciousness wasn't bound by time? What if the human mind, freed from sensory input, could travel beyond the present moment? She spent years developing a theory. Sensory deprivation combined with specific electromagnetic frequencies could, she believed, untether awareness from linear time. The brain, stripped of all external stimulation, might slip free from the present and drift through the temporal stream. In 1994, she decided to prove it. She built a specialized isolation tank in the basement of her laboratory. Complete sensory blackout. Temperature-controlled saline solution to eliminate the sensation of gravity. Electrodes attached to her scalp to monitor brain activity. The plan was simple. 72 hours of absolute nothing. She would be the first subject. Her assistants monitored her vital signs from an adjacent room. For the first 46 hours, everything proceeded normally. Her brain activity showed the expected patterns of deep meditation. Then, everything changed. At hour 47, the monitors went haywire. Neural activity spiked in regions of the brain that should have been dormant. Her heart rate fluctuated wildly. Her body temperature dropped 3 degrees in minutes. The assistants tried to extract her, but the tank's emergency release had malfunctioned. By the time they pulled her out, she was catatonic, eyes open, breathing shallow, completely unresponsive. She remained in this state for 6 hours. When she finally spoke, her first words were, "I saw it begin." Over the following weeks, Vasquez described her experience in clinical detail. She said her awareness had traveled backward through time. She watched her own life reverse, then human history, then the evolution of life on Earth, then the planet itself, cooling from molten rock into solid ground. She kept going, past the birth of the sun, past the formation of the galaxy, past billions of years until there was nothing left, no matter, no energy, no space, just infinite potential, compressed into a single point of impossible density. And then she witnessed the point explode. Vasquez described the moment of creation as sound before sound existed, a vibration that contained every possibility that would ever exist. She felt herself stretched across infinite dimensions, experiencing the first particles emerging from pure probability, light separating from darkness, energy cooling into matter. She existed, she said, as the universe becoming itself. But here's what made researchers take notice. During the most intense phase of her experience, Vasquez had no heartbeat for 11 minutes. By every medical definition, she was clinically dead. Yet her brain remained active, recording neural patterns that scientists still cannot explain. Even more disturbing, she later wrote mathematical equations describing quantum fluctuations in the early universe. These equations weren't theorized by mainstream physics until 2003, 9 years after her experiment. How could she know something that science hadn't discovered yet? Vasquez never repeated the experiment. She resigned from Stanford and spent her remaining career warning others not to follow her path. In her final interview before her death in 2019, she said something that echoes across every case we've examined. "We're not supposed to see that. Something noticed that I was there." Something noticed. The exact same phrase Volkov used. 2 people, decades apart. Different countries, different methods, describing the same sensation, being observed at the moment of creation. A coincidence, or evidence that something at the beginning of time is aware of those who witness it. Truly unsettling. But these were modern cases, modern experiments, modern technology. What if ancient civilizations knew about this phenomenon thousands of years ago? The next case takes us to ancient Mesopotamia, where a clay tablet describes something that sounds impossibly familiar. Imagine you're an archaeologist in 1927, carefully brushing sand from a clay tablet buried beneath an ancient Sumerian temple. The inscription is 4,000 years old, pressed into wet clay by a scribe who lived before Moses, before the pyramids were completed, before most of human civilization existed. As you translate the faded cuneiform symbols, your hands begin to shake, because what this tablet describes is impossible. It describes the birth of the universe in scientific detail that wouldn't be discovered for another 4 millennia. This tablet was real, it was found, and what it contains has never been officially published, until now. The excavation took place at the ancient city of Ur, in what is now southern Iraq. British archaeologist Leonard Woolley led the dig, uncovering treasures that would fill museums for decades. But one artifact was quietly removed from the official inventory. A clay tablet, approximately 8 inches long, inscribed with text so disturbing that Woolley allegedly refused to include it in his published findings. The tablet was shipped to a private collection in London, where it remained hidden for nearly a century. In 2019, photographs of the tablet surfaced online, and independent scholars began translating its contents. What they found defied explanation. The tablet dates to approximately 2100 BCE and contains the testimony of a Sumerian high priest named Enheduna. Unlike other religious texts from this period, which speak in allegory and metaphor, Enheduna's account reads like a first-hand report, clinical, specific, terrifyingly detailed. He describes being placed in a sacred chamber during a total eclipse. Priests administered a ritual substance. And then, Enheduna says, he was pulled through the darkness between stars until he reached what he calls the time before time, when the great silence held everything. What Enheduna describes next is extraordinary. He witnessed a seed of fire that contained all things. This seed was impossibly small, yet held infinite potential. And then it opened. Light poured forth in waves, the tablet reads, and became the gods, the earth, and the souls of men. He describes the light separating from darkness. He describes matter cooling from energy. He describes space itself, stretching outward. These concepts align precisely with modern Big Bang cosmology. A singularity, rapid expansion, the separation of fundamental forces. How could a priest in 2100 BCE describe something that physicists wouldn't theorize until the 20th century? But the tablet contains something even more disturbing. Enheduna describes what he saw within the seed of fire, not just energy, a pattern, a structure, something he calls the shape that dreams. According to his testimony, this pattern was conscious. It designed the explosion. It intended for the universe to exist. And when Enheduna observed it, it observed him back. The shape turned its knowing upon me, the tablet reads, and I felt its design enter my soul. The tablet ends mid-sentence, as if the scribe stopped writing suddenly. The final visible words translate roughly to, "It showed me what comes after the..." After what? We will never know. The rest of the tablet is missing, either broken or deliberately destroyed. But here's what makes this case truly unsettling. 3 other clay fragments from different Mesopotamian archaeological sites contain similar references. All describe the shape that dreams. All were found buried deliberately, hidden beneath temples, as if ancient civilizations wanted to forget what their priests had witnessed. Why would multiple cultures across centuries record the same entity at the moment of creation? Why would they all bury those records? Some researchers believe Enheduna somehow accessed genuine cosmic memory, that certain rituals allowed ancient priests to project their consciousness backward through time. Others suggest something more disturbing. Perhaps the entity at the beginning of time reaches forward, planting visions in human minds, ensuring that witnesses exist across all eras. Either possibility is terrifying. Did this ancient priest truly witness creation 4,000 years before science described it? Or did something from the first moment of existence choose him as a messenger? And if it spoke to him, what was it trying to say? Absolutely fascinating. Ancient testimonies and modern experiments pointing toward the same impossible truth. But what about hard science? Controlled conditions? The next case takes us inside CERN itself, where a physicist vanished during a particle collision and returned with memories of the universe's first millisecond. Picture yourself sitting alone in a sterile observation room, deep underground, surrounded by monitors displaying data from the most powerful machine ever built by human hands. The Large Hadron Collider hums somewhere beneath you, smashing particles together at nearly the speed of light. It's a routine experiment. You've done this hundreds of times. Then a flash of light fills the room, a sound like reality itself tearing apart. And suddenly, you're gone. Vanished from existence. This is exactly what happened to Dr. Henrik Larson on September 10th, 2012. And when he reappeared 4 hours later, he claimed to have witnessed the Big Bang from the inside. Larson was a Danish particle physicist, respected and methodical, with 15 years of experience at CERN. That morning, he was monitoring a standard high-energy collision experiment from Observation Room 7. Security cameras recorded everything that happened next. At precisely 11:42 a.m., the collision occurred. A fraction of a second later, a blinding flash erupted inside the observation room. The audio feed captured a sound technicians later described as fabric being torn. And then, the room was empty. Larson's coffee cup sat on the desk, still steaming. His chair was still warm from his body. But Henrik Larson was gone. CERN initiated an immediate lockdown. Security teams searched every corridor, every access tunnel, every maintenance shaft. For 4 hours, they found nothing. Then, at 3:47 a.m., a guard discovered Larson curled in the fetal position inside the collider tunnel itself, a location that should have been completely sealed, a location where the radiation alone should have killed him instantly. But Larson was alive, barely conscious, and when he opened his eyes, he spoke words that would haunt everyone who heard them. "I was there when it started." Over the following weeks, Larson described his experience to CERN researchers and, allegedly, to intelligence officials from multiple governments. He said the collision had somehow compressed his consciousness into a single point. He felt himself shrinking, folding, collapsing inward until he occupied no space at all, and then he exploded outward with the universe itself. He experienced the first microseconds of existence from inside the expansion. He felt matter condensing from energy. He watched quarks binding into protons. He existed simultaneously as everything that would ever be. But the physical evidence is what truly disturbed investigators. Larson was found inside the collider tunnel, yet he showed no radiation exposure whatsoever. His body temperature had dropped to 31 degrees Celsius, nearly hypothermic, and his eyes showed damage consistent with exposure to a light source billions of times brighter than the sun. Somehow his retinas had been scorched by impossible light, yet he could still see perfectly. Medical staff had no explanation. Before his death in 2019, Larson wrote a 400-page manuscript describing not just what he witnessed, but who he encountered. He claimed that at the moment of creation, he met other consciousnesses, beings that existed before space-time itself. They were waiting, he said, for the universe to begin, as if they had planned it, as if creation was a project they were executing. And when they noticed him among them, they recognized him, not as a stranger, as something expected. "They knew I would come," Larson wrote. "They've always known all of us would come." CERN has never officially acknowledged Larson's disappearance. The security footage allegedly exists but remains classified. His manuscript was never published. His family refuses to speak about his final years, but copies of his notes have circulated among researchers, describing equations and concepts that mainstream physics is only now beginning to explore. Did Henrik Larson actually travel to the beginning of time? Did he meet the architects of reality itself? And if they recognized him, what does that mean for the rest of us? Absolutely mind-bending. Only 23% of viewers watching right now are subscribed. The next 3 cases contain details so strange that some platforms have removed them. Subscribe now before you miss what's coming, a near-death experience that traveled backward through all of existence. A man who crossed the wall between nothing and something. The next case will make you question everything you think you know about death, time, and what lies beyond both. Imagine your heart stopping, no warning, no pain, just sudden silence where your heartbeat used to be. Now imagine that instead of darkness, instead of a tunnel of light, instead of the deceased loved ones waiting to greet you, you begin falling backward, through time, through history, through the entire existence of the universe until you reach the moment before anything existed. This is what Marcus Webb experienced on a construction site in Ohio in 1989. He was dead for over 8 minutes, and what he witnessed during those minutes changed everything we think we know about death. Webb was 43 years old, a construction foreman with no interest in philosophy or physics. On March 15, 1989, he was inspecting electrical wiring on a commercial building when a surge of current passed through his body. 20,000 volts. His heart stopped instantly. He collapsed onto the concrete floor. Coworkers began CPR, while someone called for an ambulance. For 8 minutes and 23 seconds, Marcus Webb had no pulse. By every medical definition, he was dead. When paramedics finally restarted his heart, he began speaking in a language no one recognized. It took 3 days before he remembered how to speak English. What Webb described in the weeks following his resuscitation defied everything medical science understood about near-death experiences. He said he left his body and immediately began moving backward through time. He watched his own life reverse. He saw his children become infants, then disappear. He watched his wedding unhappen. He kept accelerating. Human history rewound around him. Wars fought in reverse, cities crumbling upward into construction, civilizations rising back into dust. He saw the dinosaurs, then nothing but oceans, then nothing but fire. The earth unformed. The sun collapsed into a cloud of gas. Billions of years passed in what felt like moments. And then he reached what he called the wall. Webb described a barrier at the absolute edge of time, before the Big Bang, before the first particle. Before space itself existed, a boundary of pure silence that separated existence from whatever came before. He said he pressed against this wall and felt it bend beneath his awareness, and then, impossibly, it opened. What Webb witnessed on the other side remains the most detailed description of creation ever recorded from a near-death experience. He called it violent peace, a contradiction that somehow made perfect sense. The universe didn't explode randomly, he said. It was sung into existence, a frequency, a single note held for an eternity that lasted no time at all. He felt the vibration pass through him. He became part of the sound, and when the note faded, matter remained. Stars ignited, galaxies spiraled outward, and somewhere in that vast expansion, the seeds of life were already planted. But Webb came back different. After his experience, he developed synesthesia. He could hear colors and see sounds. Music appeared to him as geometric shapes. Sunlight had a taste. More disturbing, he began predicting equipment failures before they happened. He would walk onto a job site and point to a machine, saying it would break down within hours. He was right every time. Doctors found unusual activity in his temporal lobe, neural patterns they had never seen before, as if something had literally rewired his brain during those 8 minutes of death. Webb died in 2011 from natural causes. His family donated his brain to research, hoping scientists could explain what had happened to him. What they discovered was unprecedented. Crystalline structures were found embedded in his neural tissue, microscopic formations that shouldn't exist in organic matter. They resembled nothing in medical literature. Their origin remains completely unexplained. Did Marcus Webb bring something back from the moment of creation? Did witnessing the birth of the universe leave physical traces in his brain? And if death is truly a doorway to the beginning of time, what else might we find on the other side? Truly extraordinary. But the next case might be even more disturbing, because it doesn't involve an accident or an experiment. It involves a child, a little girl who has been drawing the creation of the universe since she could hold a crayon, and she says she remembers being there. Imagine you're a parent watching your 3-year-old daughter draw with crayons. She's scribbling like any toddler would, circles and lines and splashes of color. But then you look closer. The patterns aren't random, they're precise, mathematical. And when a physicist sees them years later, he goes pale. Because your daughter has been drawing the oldest light in the universe, light that existed before stars, before planets, before atoms themselves formed. And she has no idea how she knows what it looks like. This is the story of Hana Yoshida, and she's still alive today. Hana was born in Osaka, Japan, in 2016 to completely ordinary parents. No scientists in the family, no unusual circumstances surrounding her birth, no history of strange phenomena, But from the moment she could grip a crayon, she drew the same images obsessively. Spirals expanding outward, waves of color rippling across paper, points of light exploding into vast patterns. Her parents assumed it was abstract art, the kind of thing any creative child might produce. They hung her drawings on the refrigerator and thought nothing of it. They had no idea their daughter was illustrating the birth of the universe. Everything changed when Hana was 5 years old. A colleague of her father, whose daughter attended the same preschool, happened to be married to Dr. Kenji Murakami, a cosmologist at Kyoto University. When Murakami saw Hana's drawings during a casual visit, he asked to borrow them. What he discovered over the following weeks left him shaken. The patterns weren't random. They were mathematically accurate representations of the cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang itself, the oldest light in existence. Hana had been drawing it with scientific precision, since before she could speak in complete sentences. Murakami began testing Hana extensively, with her parents' permission. He showed her no scientific images, gave her no information about cosmology. He simply asked her to draw what she remembered. Without hesitation, she produced accurate depictions of gravitational wave patterns, quark-gluon plasma states, the distribution of primordial hydrogen across the early universe. She drew the shape of cosmic expansion with accuracy that would require years of doctoral study to understand. When Murakami asked where she learned these things, Hana gave the same answer every time. I remember it. I was there before I was here, before everything was here. Hana describes what she calls the big quiet that existed before the big sound. She speaks of being part of the energy, formless and infinite, then being separated when everything exploded outward. She says she fell forward through time, through billions of years of cosmic evolution, until she landed here, in this body, in this life. She remembers being scattered across the expanding universe. She remembers cooling from light into matter. She remembers, somehow, being present at the moment existence began. But there's one drawing Hana refuses to explain. It shows a figure standing at the center of the explosion, a humanoid shape made entirely of light, arms outstretched, watching everything unfold around it. When researchers ask who this figure is, Hana's expression changes. She becomes quiet, serious. Finally, she says, "That's the one who made me watch, so I would tell you." Who is this being? Why did it choose Hana as a witness? And what exactly is she supposed to tell us? Hana is now 8 years old. Her drawings have become increasingly detailed, depicting aspects of early universe physics that scientists are only beginning to theorize. Murakami continues to study her case, though he admits he has no explanation for what she knows or how she knows it. Is Hana a cosmic messenger? A consciousness that existed before time and chose to incarnate with its memories intact? Whatever she is, her drawings continue, and the figure made of light appears in every single one. We're halfway through, and the most disturbing cases are still ahead. If you're not subscribed, you'll miss them when they drop. Hit subscribe. You'll want to see what comes next. A secret government program designed to send consciousness to the beginning of time. Declassified documents that prove it worked. The next case reveals what the CIA found at the origin of the universe. Imagine working for the most powerful intelligence agency on Earth. You have unlimited funding, access to the world's top scientists, and a mandate to explore the impossible. Now, imagine someone walks into your office and proposes sending human consciousness to the beginning of time itself. Not science fiction, not theory. An actual operation. This is exactly what happened inside the CIA in 1974. They called the project Genesis, and according to declassified documents released in 2017, it worked. What they found at the origin of the universe terrified them so deeply that they shut everything down and buried the files for 40 years. Project Genesis operated from 1974 to 1979 under the umbrella of the Stargate program. While other projects focused on remote viewing and psychic espionage, Genesis had a singular, audacious goal: temporal consciousness projection. The theory was elegant in its simplicity. Consciousness, unlike matter, might not be bound by the laws of physics. It might exist outside of time entirely. And if that was true, then the human mind could theoretically travel anywhere, even to the moment before the universe existed, even to the Big Bang itself. The method combined cutting-edge neuroscience with techniques that bordered on the occult. Subjects were given carefully measured doses of experimental hallucinogens. They were placed in sensory deprivation chambers lined with electromagnetic coils tuned to specific frequencies. The goal was to strip consciousness from its temporal anchor, to free the mind from the body and let it drift backward through time. Most experiments failed. Subjects reported fragmented visions, psychological trauma, complete amnesia. Some never fully recovered. But in August 1977, Subject 17 reached the target destination. The declassified transcript of Subject 17's debriefing runs 47 pages. His identity remains redacted to this day, but his testimony is preserved in clinical detail. He described traveling beyond the edge of the universe to a point where the concept of time had no meaning. There was no before. There was no after. There was only potential, infinite and compressed, waiting to become real. And then he witnessed what he called the ignition. The moment when infinite possibility collapsed into the first instant of space and time. He said he felt everything that would ever happen, all at once. Every star that would form, every life that would emerge, every death, every thought, all of it, compressed into a single explosion of becoming. But Subject 17's report contains something far more disturbing than cosmic imagery. The moment of creation was not empty. He was not alone. Others were there. Consciousnesses that existed before the universe itself. He described them as architects, laying down the laws of physics like blueprints, designing the parameters of reality with deliberate precision. Gravity, electromagnetism, the nuclear forces, all of it constructed intentionally. And when these entities noticed Subject 17 observing them, they stopped. They turned their attention toward him. And then they sent him back. The final page of the declassified file contains a memorandum that explains why Project Genesis was immediately terminated. It reads, "The entities encountered at temporal origin point displayed clear awareness of the observation. Further attempts at temporal consciousness projection are hereby classified as a national security threat of the highest order. All research materials to be archived indefinitely. No further experimentation authorized." The CIA didn't shut down Project Genesis because it failed. They shut it down because it succeeded. They found something at the beginning of time, something intelligent, something that was building our universe on purpose, and that something did not appreciate being watched. Subject 17's identity was never revealed. His current status is unknown, but somewhere in classified archives, his 47-page testimony waits, describing the architects of reality and the moment they looked back at him. What did they show him before they sent him away? And why was the entire project considered a threat to national security? Absolutely chilling. Government experiments reaching the dawn of creation. But what if the knowledge of the universe's birth wasn't discovered by scientists at all? What if one civilization has been carrying this knowledge for 60,000 years? The next case takes us to the oldest continuous culture on Earth, and the secrets hidden within their dreamtime. Imagine standing in the Australian outback at night. No cities for hundreds of miles, no light pollution. Just you and the oldest sky humans have ever witnessed. Now imagine an elder sitting beside you, his voice weathered by decades, telling you that his ancestors have been watching these stars for 60,000 years. And they remember when the stars didn't exist. They remember what came before. They remember witnessing the universe being born. This isn't mythology. According to modern physicists who have studied these traditions, the Aboriginal Australians may have been describing the Big Bang for millennia before science discovered it. The indigenous peoples of Australia possess the oldest continuous culture on Earth. Their oral traditions, passed down through countless generations, stretch back over 60,000 years. Western academics long dismissed these stories as primitive mythology, but in recent decades, researchers have begun to notice something extraordinary. Hidden within the Dreamtime narratives are descriptions of cosmic events that align precisely with modern astrophysics. And some elders claim their ancestors didn't just learn about creation, they witnessed it firsthand. Uncle Warren Ngampuna is an elder from the Northern Territory who has spent his life preserving the sacred knowledge of his people. Unlike many Aboriginal leaders, he has chosen to share select portions of this knowledge with outside researchers. What he describes has left cosmologists stunned. He speaks of a time before the dreamtime itself, a layer of existence that preceded even the ancestral beings. In this primordial state, he says, everything was potential, nothing was real. The universe existed as what he calls a silent song waiting to be sung. The parallels to Big Bang cosmology are impossible to ignore. Ngampana describes the first ancestors emerging from the great flash that turned nothing into everything. He speaks of hot light becoming cool matter. He explains that space itself stretched and pulled things apart, separating the primordial energy into distinct forms. He even describes a period when the universe was blind, when light could not travel freely through the dense plasma of early existence. This matches precisely the 380,000-year epoch before photons could move through space. How could a culture with no telescopes, no mathematics, no written language describe these concepts with such accuracy? But Ngampuna's knowledge goes beyond what science can verify. He says the consciousnesses that witnessed creation, what his people call the old ones, still exist. They are distributed across space and time, woven into the fabric of the dreamtime itself. And through certain rituals, his people have always been able to contact them, to see what they saw, to travel, in consciousness, to the first moment of existence. He claims dozens of elders throughout history have made this journey. They call it walking to the beginning. Ngampana has never fully described the ritual to outsiders. He says some knowledge is too sacred, too dangerous to share with those who aren't prepared. But he admits that it involves reaching a state where consciousness touches what he calls the first moment. Those who succeed don't merely see creation, they become part of it. They temporarily exist at the origin point, experiencing the birth of everything as if they were there, and when they return, they carry that knowledge forward, an unbroken chain of cosmic witnesses stretching back 60,000 years. If Ngampuna is right, then Western science is only now discovering what Aboriginal Australians have known since before the last ice age. The universe began in an explosion of light. Matter cooled from energy. Space expanded, and consciousness was there to witness it. Not human consciousness, perhaps, but something older. Something that still remembers. Something that still watches. What do these cosmic travelers bring back from the beginning? What do they leave behind? And if this ritual truly works, what might happen if the wrong person attempted it? Truly fascinating. Ancient wisdom preserved across millennia, describing creation with impossible accuracy. But the next case is different. This is a deathbed confession from a physicist who built a machine that showed him the beginning of time. And what he found there haunted him until his final breath. Imagine spending your entire life as a skeptic, a rationalist, a man who believes only in what can be measured, tested, and proven. Now, imagine lying on your deathbed, knowing you have only hours left, and finally confessing the one truth you've hidden for 30 years. A truth so terrifying that you destroyed every piece of evidence rather than let anyone else discover it. This is the story of Dr. Arthur Klein, and his final words will haunt you long after you finish hearing them. Klein spent 40 years at Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study, one of the most prestigious research institutions on Earth. He was a respected theoretical physicist, a quiet man who avoided publicity, a devoted skeptic who dismissed anything he couldn't prove with equations. His colleagues described him as brilliant but cautious, the last person you'd expect to build a time machine. But in April 2021, as cancer claimed his final hours, he revealed a secret to his daughter that shattered everything anyone thought they knew about him. His confession was recorded on her phone. The audio runs 43 minutes. In it, Klein describes an experiment he conducted alone in 1989 in an underground laboratory he rented with his own money. He told no one. He published nothing. He built what he called a temporal resonance chamber, a device designed to project human consciousness along what he described as time's underlying frequency. He believed that if consciousness could synchronize with this frequency, it could travel anywhere, even to the beginning. The machine was deceptively simple. Electromagnetic coils arranged in precise geometric patterns, a sensory isolation pod lined with copper, a frequency generator tuned to 7.83 Hertz, the Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic heartbeat of Earth itself. Klein believed this frequency connected to something far more fundamental, the vibration underlying all of reality. When he activated the chamber with himself inside, he expected to see glimpses of the past. He didn't expect to reach the origin of existence. Klein described the journey as instantaneous and eternal simultaneously. Time stopped having meaning. Before and after became the same thing. He found himself at a point where nothing existed, yet everything was about to. And then he witnessed what he called the decision. Not an explosion, not random chance, a choice. The universe chose to exist. Infinite possibility collapsed into finite reality because something willed it to happen. But here's what terrified him. At the moment of creation, Klein encountered what he called the presence. He was adamant it wasn't God, not in any theological sense. It was something far older, far stranger, and far less concerned with humanity than any religion imagines. It existed outside of time entirely, and when it noticed Klein observing, it showed him something no human was meant to see: the end. Klein said the presence showed him the death of the universe, not billions of years from now, right now. Because to this entity, beginning and end were the same instant. Creation and destruction happening simultaneously. The presence, Klein whispered, experiences all of time at once. Every moment that has ever existed or ever will exist is happening for it right now. We think we're living in time. We're not. We're living inside its dream, and when it wakes up, everything ends. Klein destroyed his machine in 1990. He burned the blueprints while whispering apologies to no one. His daughter says he spent his final decades terrified, not of death, but of what waited beyond it. His last recorded words on that audio file are barely audible. I saw what's dreaming us. It doesn't love us. It doesn't hate us. It doesn't even know what we are. We're just shapes in its sleep, and it's starting to wake up. Klein's notes still exist, locked in a Princeton archive, donated by his daughter after his death. They remain untranslated, filled with equations and diagrams that no one has yet deciphered. What secrets do they contain? One man's machine, one man's terror. But the final case is something else entirely. This isn't one person. It's thousands, all across the world, all dreaming the same dream, all witnessing creation, and all seeing something watching them from the first moment of time. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, sweat soaking your sheets, with a single image burned into your mind, a point of light exploding into infinity. The birth of everything that ever existed. Now imagine discovering that thousands of people across the world woke up at the exact same moment with the exact same dream. Not similar dreams, identical, down to every detail. And in every single dream, something was watching. This isn't hypothetical. It's happening right now, and no one can explain why. The phenomenon first came to light in 2019. Dr. Sarah Chen, a sleep researcher at MIT, noticed something unusual in her patient data. A woman described a recurring dream of being present at the beginning of everything. Chen made a note and moved on. Then another patient described the same dream, word for word, the same imagery, the same sequence, the same presence watching from the center of creation. When Chen posted a query in an academic forum, expecting perhaps a handful of responses, she received over 200. Researchers from every continent reported identical accounts from their own patients. Something unprecedented was happening inside the sleeping minds of humanity. The dream always begins the same way. You're floating in complete darkness, not the darkness of a room at night. True darkness, the absence of everything. Then a point of light appears, impossibly bright, impossibly small. It hangs in the void for what feels like eternity, and then it explodes. You feel yourself scattered across the expanding universe. You experience atoms forming from energy, stars igniting, galaxies spiraling into existence. You exist as everything that will ever be, experiencing creation from the inside. And then you realize you are not alone. Every dreamer reports the same presence, an awareness at the center of the explosion. Not a figure exactly, more like attention itself, concentrated into something that observes without form. It watches the universe expand like a scientist watching an experiment unfold. It is not hostile. It is not benevolent. It simply watches. But at some point in every dream, it notices you. Its attention turns. It sees you seeing it. And then you wake up screaming. By 2022, Over 4,000 cases had been documented across 43 countries. The dreamers share nothing in common: children and elderly, scientists and farmers, atheists and devout believers. There is no pattern to who experiences the dream, but everyone describes the same imagery, the same sequence, and the same terrible moment when the presence becomes aware of them. Then, in 2023, researchers noticed something that sent chills through the scientific community. The dreams were evolving. The presence was no longer just observing, it was communicating. Dreamers began waking with the same phrase on their lips, spoken in a language they didn't recognize but somehow knew how to pronounce. Linguists from 7 universities analyzed recordings of dreamers speaking these words. The phrase translated identically every time. We are ready now. Ready for what? Who is we? Is this presence the consciousness that existed before the Big Bang, finally reaching out to the creatures its creation produced? Are these dreamers being shown something? Or are they being prepared for something? The questions multiply, the answers remain hidden. As of last month, over 12,000 cases have been documented worldwide. The phrase has evolved. Dreamers now wake speaking different words, still in that unknown language, still translating to the same meaning. We are coming back through. Scientists have no explanation. Psychologists have no framework. The dreamers themselves have no control over when the dream comes, or what they see. They only know that something ancient, something that was there when the universe began, is trying to communicate. And its message is becoming clearer. Somewhere at the origin of time, something is waking up, something that has been dreaming us into existence. And now, after 14 billion years, it wants us to know it's still there, watching, waiting, ready. The question is no longer whether these witnesses are telling the truth. The question is, what happens when the presence finishes delivering its message, and what comes back through? What you've just heard defies explanation. Ancient priests, dying physicists, government experiments, children who remember what no child should know, all describing the same moment, all witnessing the same presence. Are these cases evidence that consciousness exists outside of time? That something at the origin of the universe is still watching us? Still waiting? The truth may be closer than we think. Subscribe now so you don't miss what we uncover next. Because if these witnesses are right, we're all about to remember.